Hyunwoo stared at the scanner display and frowned. The readings made no sense. According to his equipment, the asteroid they were mining contained metals that should not exist in nature. He wiped sweat from his forehead and called over his shoulder, "So Young, come look at this." The young engineer floated over in the low gravity of their mining station. Her dark hair was tied back in a practical ponytail, and her coveralls were stained with grease from the morning's repairs. She looked at the screen and her eyes widened. "These readings are impossible," she said. "This asteroid has titanium steel composites that we stopped making 300 years ago." "That's what I thought too." Hyunwoo touched the screen with a gloved finger. "But the scanner doesn't lie. Their mining station, Omega-7, was one of the last human outposts in the galaxy. Most people thought humans were extinct. For 3 centuries, no human signals had been detected anywhere. The great alien empires had divided up human space among themselves, convinced that the species had simply died out. But Hyunwoo and his small crew knew better. They were survivors, hidden in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. There were maybe 5,000 humans left scattered across a dozen secret bases. They lived quietly, mining minerals and trying not to attract attention. Do-hyun, their navigator, drifted into the room. He was older than the others, with gray streaks in his black hair. "Commander, we've got company coming. 3 Valerian scout ships about 6 hours out." Hyunwoo cursed under his breath. The Valerians were one of the 3 major powers that now controlled this part of space. They had purple skin and 6 arms, and they were not friendly to humans. "Can we hide?" "Already. Working on it," Do-hyun said. "But we need to finish with this asteroid fast." Yoon-ji, their medic, appeared in the doorway. She was the youngest of the group, barely 25, with kind eyes that had seen too much hardship. "What's the emergency?" "We need to crack this rock open and see what's inside," Hyunwoo said. "So Young, can you do it without making too much noise?" So Young nodded and began pulling equipment from the storage lockers. "Give me 2 hours." The next 2 hours felt like forever. Hyunwoo watched the Valerian ships get closer while So Young worked with her drilling equipment. The asteroid was harder than normal rock. Whatever was inside, someone had built it to last. "Got it," So Young called out. The drill broke through into empty space. "There's a chamber in here, and Commander, there's atmosphere. Old human atmosphere." Hyunwoo felt his heart skip. Human atmosphere meant this asteroid had been built by humans long ago. "Can we get inside?" "Working on it." So Young attached an airlock tube to the hole she had drilled. "Pressure is stable. We can go in." The 4 of them suited up and crawled through the narrow tube into the asteroid. Emergency lights flickered on as they entered, responding to their movement. The chamber was huge, carved out of solid rock and lined with metal walls. Everything was covered in dust, but the air was clean and breathable. "Look at this," Yoon-ji whispered. She pointed to symbols on the wall. They were human letters, but arranged in words none of them recognized. "Guardian Protocol, Terra Defense Initiative." "Terra," Do-hyun said quietly. "That's the old name for Earth." They moved deeper into the facility. The corridors were wide and well built, designed to last centuries. Most of the equipment was shut down, but some systems were still running on backup power. Red lights blinked on control panels, and computer screens showed status reports in an old human language. At the center of the facility, they found something incredible. A single chamber contained a cylinder made of clear metal. Inside the cylinder, floating in blue liquid, was a human man. He looked to be in his 40s with short black hair and a strong face. His body was perfectly preserved. "He's alive," Yoon-ji said, checking the readings on the cylinder. "Barely, but alive. This is some kind of cryogenic suspension." So Young read the nameplate on the cylinder. "Fleet Admiral Jin-ho, Guardian Prime." She looked up at the others. "I've never heard of any Guardian Prime." "The equipment is 300 years old," Do-hyun said. "This man has been sleeping since before the Great Silence." The Great Silence was what historians called the moment when humanity disappeared. One day, human ships were flying between the stars, and human colonies were thriving. The next day, all the signals stopped. No messages, no ships, no trace. Most aliens assumed humans had destroyed themselves in a war. Suddenly, lights began flashing all over the chamber. Computer screens lit up and began scrolling through thousands of lines of code. A mechanical voice spoke in clear human language. Living human DNA detected. Initiating revival sequence. Guardian Prime authorization confirmed. What's happening? Yunji asked. The blue liquid in the cylinder began to drain away. Machines hummed to life around them. The man inside the cylinder opened his eyes. For a moment, he looked confused. Then his gaze focused on the 4 people standing outside his chamber. The cylinder opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. The man stepped out, moving carefully as if his muscles needed time to remember how to work. He looked at Hyunwoo and his crew taking in their old mining equipment and worn clothes. How long? He asked. His voice was rough from centuries of sleep. How long what, sir? Hyunwoo replied. How long since the protocol was activated? How long have I been asleep? So-young checked her wrist computer. According to the facility logs, you've been in suspension for 313 years. Jin-ho closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When he opened them again, his expression was hard and determined. Then it's time. The galaxy thinks humanity is dead? Most people do, yes, Do-hyun said. There are only a few thousand of us left, hiding in places like this. Jin-ho smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who knew secrets that could change everything. A few thousand visible humans, you mean? Tell me, have any of you ever wondered why the Great Silence happened so suddenly? Why an entire species just vanished overnight? We assumed there was a war, Hyunwoo said. Or a plague. Something that killed most of us. No war. No plague. Jin-ho walked to one of the computer terminals and began entering commands. The screen showed star maps with thousands of red dots scattered across the galaxy. Humanity didn't die out. We went into hiding. Hiding? Yunji asked. The Guardian protocol was humanity's greatest secret. When we realized that the galaxy was turning against us, that the major powers were planning to destroy us, we implemented the protocol. Every human world was evacuated. Every ship was hidden. Every trace of our civilization was erased or concealed. The star map zoomed in on different systems. Each red dot represented a hidden human facility. There were hundreds of them. But why? So-young asked. Why hide instead of fighting? Jin-ho turned to face them. Because we needed time. Time to grow. Time to build. Time to become something the galaxy had never seen before. He gestured to the walls around them. This facility is one of 50 Guardian stations scattered across the galaxy. Each one contains a Guardian like me, preserved in suspension, waiting for the signal to wake up. What signal? Hyunwoo asked. Jin-ho walked to another terminal and placed his hand on a scanner. The device beeped and accepted his authorization. The signal I'm about to send right now. Warning lights began flashing throughout the facility. A deep hum filled the air as massive transmitters powered up. On the main screen, they could see energy readings spiking to incredible levels. Attention all Guardian stations. Jin-ho spoke into a microphone. This is Guardian Prime Jin-ho. The sleep is over. Humanity rises. Activate all protocols. Wake the fleet. The transmission lasted only a few seconds, but Hyunwoo knew it would change everything. Across the galaxy, other facilities like this, one would be receiving the signal. Other Guardians would be waking up after 3 centuries of sleep. Commander, Do-hyun said urgently, those Valerian ships are almost here. We need to hide. Jin-ho looked at the tactical display showing the approaching enemy vessels. Hide? No. We're done hiding. He turned to Hyunwoo. Commander, I'm assuming. Command of this facility under Guardian Protocol Authority. Do you accept? Hyunwoo looked at his crew. They were miners, not soldiers, but they were also human, and this man represented hope they had never dared to imagine. Yes, sir. Good. So-young, I need you to activate the defense systems. The codes are in the main computer. Defense systems? So Young asked. This is just a mining station. Jinho smiled again. Child, nothing built under the Guardian Protocol is just anything. This asteroid contains enough firepower to destroy a battle fleet. So Young's fingers flew over the computer controls. Around them, the facility began to transform. Walls slid aside to reveal weapon emplacements. The entire asteroid shuddered as massive gun turrets extended from hidden ports. What had looked like a simple mining operation was revealed as a heavily armed fortress. Valerian ships are in weapons range, Do-hyun reported. Let them come, Jinho said. He took his position at the command station like he had been born for it. Open a channel to the lead ship. The main screen flickered and showed the interior of a Valerian bridge. The alien captain had 6 arms and purple skin. His large eyes widened when he saw Jinho. Impossible, the Valerian hissed. Humans are extinct. Reports of our extinction have been greatly exaggerated. Jinho replied calmly. I am Fleet Admiral. The message traveled faster than light, racing across the galaxy through quantum communication networks that the aliens had never detected. In hidden facilities scattered among distant stars, ancient machines received Jinho's signal and began the process of awakening. Fleet Admiral Sung Min opened her eyes in a chamber buried beneath the surface of a dead moon, near what used to be the human colony of New Shanghai. The cryogenic fluid drained away as computers checked her vital signs and declared the revival successful. She stepped out of her suspension cylinder and immediately began accessing the tactical displays. 300 years of automated data streamed across her screens. Ship movements, alien fleet compositions, political changes in the major powers. Her artificial intelligence assistants had been watching and learning while she slept. Guardian Station Centauri operational, she said into her communicator. Admiral, Sung Min reporting. All systems green. On the other side of the galaxy, General Ha-Yun woke up in a hollowed-out asteroid that looked exactly like the thousands of others floating in the debris field around a destroyed star system. Her station had been disguised as wreckage for 3 centuries, invisible to the alien surveys that passed through regularly. She reviewed the data her systems had collected. The Keth Collective had established a major base only 50 light-years away. Their bioships grew like living creatures bred for war, but Ha-Yun's computers had been studying Keth technology for 300 years. She knew their weaknesses. Guardian Station Epsilon active, she reported. General Ha-Yun ready for orders. Admiral Taeho's station near Vega had been built inside, a gas giant's moon. The facility's existence was masked by the electromagnetic interference from the planet's radiation belt. He had awakened to find that the Trilaxian Federation had built a research station in the same system, completely unaware that humans had been there first. Guardian Station Vega online, he said. Admiral Taeho standing by. One by one, 50 Guardian stations across the galaxy came alive. Admirals, generals, and fleet commanders who had volunteered to sleep for centuries while their species rebuilt in secret. Each one controlled a fortress that appeared to be something else. Asteroids, dead moons, space junk, even artificial comets that had been following predictable orbits for 300 years. Back at Omega 7, Jinho coordinated the awakening from his command center. Hyunwoo and his crew watched in amazement as the star map filled with status reports from facilities they had never known existed. How many ships do we have? So Young asked. Jinho pulled up another display. Each Guardian station controls a squadron of vessels. 50 stations, 12 ships each. That's 600 ships total, not counting the reserve fleets. Reserve fleets? Yoonji asked. The Guardian protocol had 3 phases. Jinho explained. Phase 1 was the evacuation and concealment. Phase 2 was building the hidden infrastructure. Phase 3 was preparing for our return. He touched the screen and new data appeared. The automated shipyards have been working for 3 centuries. We have more than just 600 ships. Do-hyun studied the numbers and went pale. These readings can't be right. This says we have over 50,000 vessels. The automated systems were very efficient, Jinho said calmly. They've been building steadily since the Great Silence. Ships, weapons, infrastructure. Everything we would need to reclaim our place in the galaxy. But they weren't the only ones who had detected the Guardian signals. Deep in Valerian space, Admiral Veltar received the report from the patrol ships that had survived the encounter at Omega 7. Her 6 arms moved quickly over her command interfaces as she processed the impossible information. "Humans?" she hissed. "After 300 years, they return." The Valerian Empire had expanded significantly since humanity's disappearance. They controlled over 200 star systems that had once belonged to human colonies. The idea that the original inhabitants might want their property back was deeply troubling. Veltar activated the emergency communication system and sent a priority message to the other major powers. Within hours, she was in a 3-way conference with her greatest enemies. Hivemind Prime Kethlock appeared on the screen as a writhing mass of tentacles surrounding a central brain. The Keith Collective communicated through shared consciousness, making them incredibly efficient but also predictable. "We detected the energy signals," Kethlock said in the buzzing voice that all Keth used. "Old human technology, but modified, enhanced." Supreme Admiral Trillivan of the Trilaxian Federation looked almost human, except for the silver skin and the extra set of arms. The Trilaxians were the most technologically advanced species in the galaxy, and they had always been curious about human engineering principles. "Our scientists analyzed the weapon signatures from your encounter," Trillivan said to Veltar. "The energy output exceeds anything in our databases." "How is that possible?" Veltar asked. "Humans were always behind us technologically. They compensated with aggression and unpredictability, but their equipment was inferior." "Was," Kethlock emphasized. 300 years of development could change that. Trillivan brought up a holographic display showing the locations where Guardian signals had been detected. "We've identified at least 37 transmission sources. If each one represents a hidden facility, then they've been planning this return for centuries," Veltar finished. "This was never an extinction. It was a strategic withdrawal." The Yabi. 3 leaders looked at each other with growing concern. For 300 years, they had enjoyed the benefits of ruling space that had once belonged to humans. They had strip-mined human worlds, colonized human systems, and grown fat on resources that they had taken without opposition. "What are their numbers?" Kethlock asked. "Unknown," Trillivan replied. "But if they've been building continuously since the Great Silence, they could have significant military capacity." "We need to act fast," Veltar said, "before they can fully mobilize." Meanwhile, Jin Ho was coordinating humanity's first military operation in 3 centuries. The target was a small Valerian outpost in the former human system of Kepler 442. The system had contained a human research station before the Great Silence. Now it housed a Valerian mining operation that was stripping valuable metals from the system's asteroids. "Admiral Sungmin, you're closest to the target," Jin Ho said into his communicator. "Can you handle this with your squadron?" "Affirmative, Guardian Prime," Sungmin replied. 12 ships should be more than enough for a mining outpost. Remember, we want to make a statement, not start a genocide. Disable their facilities, destroy their military assets, but give the civilians a chance to evacuate." "Understood." Sungmin's squadron launched from their hidden base and jumped to hyperspace. The ships were sleek and black, built with technology that had advanced far beyond what the galaxy remembered. Their hulls were made from materials that bent light around them, making them nearly invisible. Their weapons could fire through normal space-time, bypassing traditional shields entirely. The Valerian mining operation never saw them coming. Admiral Koltar was reviewing production reports when his sensors officer suddenly screamed, "Ships!" 12 unknown vessels appearing from nowhere. Koltar looked at his tactical display and frowned. The ships were there, but his sensors could barely track them. Their energy signatures were unlike anything in his database. "Hail them." The main screen flickered and showed the interior of an alien bridge. But the alien wasn't alien at all. It was human. "I am Admiral Sung Min of the Terran Guardian Force," the woman said. "You are occupying the human system of Kepler 442 without authorization. You have 10 minutes to evacuate all personnel." Koltar's purple face darkened with anger. "This system belongs to the Valerian Empire. It has been ours for 200 years. It belonged to the Valerian Empire for 200 years. Sungmin corrected. As of today, we're taking it back. You cannot threaten an Imperial installation with 12 ships. Sungmin smiled. It was the same cold smile that Jin Ho had shown to the patrol ships. Would you like to test that assumption? Koltar cut the transmission and immediately ordered his defenses to activate. The mining station had 20 automated defense platforms and a squadron of 6 patrol ships. Against 12 unknown vessels, he felt confident. All platforms open. Fire. Energy beams and missiles streaked out toward the human ships. They passed harmlessly through empty space. The human vessels had simply stepped sideways through dimensions that Valerian science couldn't detect. Where did they go? Koltar demanded. His answer came as brilliant white beams lanced out of nowhere, systematically destroying each defense platform. The patrol ships tried to maneuver, but they were fighting enemies they couldn't properly target. One by one, they were disabled and left drifting. Impossible, Koltar whispered. The human ships reappeared, surrounding the mining station. On the screen, Admiral Sungmin looked calm and professional. You now have 5 minutes to evacuate, she said. Koltar was a career military officer. He had fought in 3 wars and commanded fleets in dozens of battles, but he had never faced anything like this. The human ships moved through space as if physics was just a suggestion. Their weapons ignored his shields completely. His most advanced sensors could barely track them. All personnel to the evacuation pods, he ordered. Tirtior. Evacuation took 4. The Oort cloud at the edge of the Sol system had always looked empty to alien sensors. For 300 years, survey ships had passed through the region and detected nothing but ice and rock. They never noticed that some of those rocks were perfectly spherical, or that the ice formations followed geometric patterns that nature never produced. Admiral Mireille had been waiting for this moment since the day she volunteered for the Guardian Protocol. Her station was built into what appeared to be a dwarf planet, but was actually the largest military construction facility ever created. For 3 centuries, automated systems had been building ships inside the artificial world, preparing for humanity's return. Guardian Prime, she said into her communicator. This is Admiral Mireille at Sol Station Prime. All systems are green. The fleet is ready for deployment. Jin Ho's voice came back immediately. Show them what we've built, Admiral. Mireille smiled and gave the order that would change galactic history. Activate the shipyards. Deploy the fleet. The dwarf planet began to crack open like an egg. Massive doors that had been disguised as natural formations swung wide, revealing the hollow interior. Inside, stretching for hundreds of kilometers, was a fleet that defied imagination. Dreadnoughts the size of small cities emerged first. Their hulls were black as space itself, covered in armor that could withstand direct hits from stellar explosions. Behind them came carriers that housed thousands of fighter craft, each one more advanced than the best ships in any alien fleet. But the most shocking sight was the number. Ships kept emerging from the artificial planet for hours, hundreds of them, then thousands. Each one had been built to specifications that surpassed anything the galaxy had ever seen. On Earth, Admiral Insu watched the deployment from his command center. The planet itself had been transformed during the 3 centuries of exile. Where once there had been cities and forests, now there were massive defense installations. The entire world had become a fortress, protected by shields that could deflect attacks from entire battle fleets. Guardian Prime, Insu said into his communicator. Earth Defense Command reporting. Planetary shields are online. Orbital platforms are active. We're ready to receive visitors. The orbital platforms were perhaps the most impressive part of Earth's transformation. Ring-shaped structures the size of small moons surrounded the planet at various altitudes. Each ring contained enough firepower to destroy a star system. They had been built slowly, carefully, using materials mined from asteroids and powered by fusion reactors that tapped directly into Earth's magnetic field. But Earth's transformation was only part of the story. Throughout human space, other colonies were revealing themselves. Jae-min, a young fleet commander, transmitted from the hidden world of New Harmony. Guardian Prime, This is Commander Jae-min of the new Terran Coalition. 47 colony worlds. Our reporting ready status. Total population 4 billion humans, 4 billion. The galaxy had assumed that humanity numbered in the thousands at most. The revelation that they had not only survived but thrived in secret was staggering. How did you hide so many people? Jin-ho asked. Underground cities, camouflaged installations, asteroid habitats, Jae-min replied. We learned to live without, leaving traces. Some of our worlds have been inhabited for centuries, but their surfaces look completely natural. The news reached the three major powers within hours. Emergency sessions were called in all three governments. For the first time in galactic history, the Valerian Empire, the Keth Collective, and the Trilaxian Federation faced an existential threat. Fleet Marshal Veltar stood before the Valerian High Council, her 6 arms gesturing to holographic displays that showed the scope of humanity's return. They have at least 50 major installations, hundreds of ships and billions of people. This is not a small group of survivors. This is a civilization that has been growing in secret. Emperor Velsan, the supreme ruler of the Valerian Empire, studied the data with growing alarm. How did our intelligence services miss this? Because they never stopped being human, Veltar replied. They think differently than we do. Their strategy doesn't follow logical patterns. They planned for scenarios that we never considered. In Keth space, the collective's hive mind was buzzing with agitation. Hive mind Prime Kethlock communicated with 1 million individual Keth simultaneously, processing information at speeds that individual minds couldn't match. Analysis complete, Kethlock announced. Human technological advancement exceeds our projections by 340%. Their ships use principles we do not understand. Their weapons ignore our defensive measures. Probability of successful resistance 12%. The Keth Collective prided itself on mathematical precision. If their calculations showed only a 12% chance of victory, the situation was dire indeed. On the Trilaxian homeworld, Supreme Admiral Trilavan presented her findings to the Federation Council. The Trilaxians were scientists first and warriors second, and their analysis was thorough. Honorable counselors, Trilavan said, we have underestimated humanity for the past 300 years. Their disappearance was not defeat but strategic withdrawal. They used that time to develop technologies that surpass our own. Counselor Trilmech leaned forward. What technologies? Phase-shifting drives that allow their ships to move through dimensions we cannot access. Weapons that fire through quantum, tunnels bypassing all known shield technologies, materials that appear to violate several laws of physics. Trilavan paused. And those are just the systems we've observed in action. What do you recommend? Immediate alliance with the Valerian Empire and the Keth Collective. This threat is beyond any single power's ability to handle. The three powers had been enemies for centuries. Their conflicts had shaped galactic politics since before humanity's disappearance. But faced with a common threat, old hatreds were quickly set aside. The emergency meeting took place on a neutral space station in the Vale Nebula. For the first time in galactic history, the leaders of the three major powers sat at the same table. We each control approximately 60 star systems, Veltar said. Combined, we have 1,800 systems and nearly 10,000 ships. Surely that's enough to deal with a few human colonies. You're thinking like the old galaxy, Trilavan replied. Numbers don't matter if their individual ships are superior to ours. According to our analysis, 1 human dreadnought could engage 10 of our vessels and win. Kethelok's tentacles writhed with agitation. The mathematics are disturbing. If they have thousands of ships with such capabilities, conventional tactics will not succeed. Then what do you suggest? Veltar asked. Overwhelming force, Trilavan said. Every ship we have attacking simultaneously. Don't give them time to coordinate or deploy their full strength. Where do we attack? Kethelok asked. All three leaders knew the answer. There was only one target that mattered. Earth, Veltar said. We destroy their home world, and the rest will surrender or scatter. The decision was made. For the first time in galactic history, The three major powers would combine their fleets into a single armada. 9,000 ships would converge on the Sol system and destroy humanity's cradle world before they could fully mobilize. But humanity was not sitting idle. Jin-Ho coordinated with the other Guardians as reports of alien fleet movements reached their stations. "They're gathering everything they have," Admiral Tae-Ho reported from Vega Station. "Trilaxian battle groups are moving toward the rally point at Andromeda Station." "Confirmed," General Ha-Yun added. "Keth bioships are sprouting from their breeding worlds in unprecedented numbers. The Valerians are pulling ships from their border patrols," Admiral Sung-min said. "They're leaving their territories virtually undefended." Jin-Ho studied the tactical displays. The alien alliance was impressive, but it was also predictable. They were thinking in terms of conventional warfare, massing their forces for a single, decisive battle. They didn't understand that humanity had evolved beyond such simple strategies. "Guardian Prime," a new voice said. "This is Captain Yu Jin from the Stealth Reconnaissance Fleet. I'm observing the alien staging area. They have approximately 9,000 ships gathering at the nebula. Can you get closer readings on their capabilities?" "Already done, sir. I'm transmitting the data now." Jin-Ho reviewed the intelligence, reports with growing confidence. The alien ships were impressive by old standards, but they were still using technologies that humanity had surpassed decades ago. Their shields operated on frequencies that human weapons could penetrate. Their sensors couldn't detect ships using phase shift drives. Their command structures were rigid and predictable. "Admiral Insu," Jin-Ho said, "are Earth's defenses ready for a major assault?" "More than ready," Insu replied. "We've been planning for this scenario since the Guardian Protocol began. Let them come." On Earth, the preparations were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The planet's entire surface was now covered with defense installations. Massive cannon emplacements emerged from hidden bunkers. Shield generators that had been disguised as mountains revealed their true nature. The orbital rings began rotating into combat positions, their weapons targeting systems coming online. But perhaps the most impressive sight was in Earth's upper atmosphere. What had appeared to be clouds were actually massive floating platforms, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy a. The first battle came not at Earth, but at Vega Station, where Admiral Tae-Ho had been monitoring Trilaxian fleet movements. His single Guardian station found itself facing an entire Trilaxian battle fleet that had broken away from the main armada to secure their flank. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, 300 Trilaxian ships dropping out of hyperspace. They're moving to surround us." Tae-Ho studied the tactical display with calm eyes. 300 ships against one station. By old galactic standards, it should have been no contest. But these weren't old standards. "Send a message to the fleet. Commander," he ordered. The main screen showed the silver-skinned face of Admiral Trilcor, one of the Federation's most experienced commanders. His extra set of arms moved quickly over his command controls as he processed the tactical situation. "Human station," Trilcor said. "You are surrounded and outnumbered. Surrender immediately, and we will make your destruction quick." Tae-Ho smiled, the cold smile that all Guardians seemed to share. "Admiral Trilcor, I know your service record. 43 years of military service, veteran of 12 major engagements. You're a good commander by galactic standards. Then you know resistance is futile." "What I know," Tae-Ho replied, "is that you've never fought humans before. Let me give you a lesson in why that matters." The transmission ended. Tae-Ho turned to his weapons officer. "All defensive systems online. Target their command ships first." The Trilaxian fleet opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams, missiles, plasma torpedoes, and gravity warheads all converged on the single Guardian station. The weapons struck invisible shields and simply vanished, their energy absorbed and redirected into the station's power grid. "Impossible," Trilcor whispered on his bridge. "Nothing can absorb that much firepower." His answer came as brilliant white beams lanced out from the Guardian station. Unlike conventional weapons that followed predictable paths, these beams appeared inside the Trilaxian ships, having traveled through quantum tunnels that bypassed space-time entirely. The first salvo destroyed 12 ships instantly. Their hulls, simply came apart at the molecular level as human weapons disrupted the atomic bonds holding them together. No explosions, no fire, just ships dissolving into component atoms. Evasive maneuvers, Trilcor ordered. All ships scatter. But the Trilaxian ships were too slow. Human targeting systems had been tracking them since they entered the system, calculating their positions not just in space, but in multiple dimensions. The Guardian Station's weapons reached out again and again, each shot perfectly placed to destroy another enemy vessel. "Admiral," his communications officer said with fear in his voice, "we've lost 60 ships in 2 minutes. Our weapons aren't even touching their shields." Trilcor had commanded fleets for 4 decades. He had fought pirates, rebels, and enemy nations, but he had never faced anything like this. One station was systematically destroying his entire fleet, and he couldn't even scratch its defenses. "Full retreat," he ordered. "All ships emergency jump." But Tejo wasn't finished with his lesson. As the Trilaxian ships tried to escape, the Guardian Station's weapons reached out across space and disabled their hyperspace drives. One by one, the remaining ships found themselves trapped in normal space, unable to run. "This is Admiral Tejo," came the voice from the human station. "I'm going to let 50 of your ships go. Take them back to your leaders. Tell them what you've seen here. Tell them that this was just one station, operated by one man. Tell them what's waiting for them at Earth." 50 ships out of 300 limped away from Vega Station. The rest drifted as debris, testament to the price of underestimating humanity. Within hours, word of the disaster reached the Alien Alliance. "How?" Fleet Marshal Veltar demanded, when she received the report. "How does one station destroy an entire battle fleet? Their technology is beyond our understanding," Trilcor replied via subspace communication. His silver face was pale with shock. "Their weapons ignore our shields, our armor, our evasive maneuvers. They're not using conventional physics." "Physics are universal," Supreme Admiral Trilevin said from her flagship. "What they're doing must be possible within natural laws." "Then they understand natural laws better than we do," Trilcor replied. "Admiral, we need to reconsider this assault. If one station can do this, what can their entire military do?" But the Alien Alliance was too committed to turn back. 9,000 ships were already moving toward the Sol system. 3 centuries of preparation had led to this moment, and they couldn't retreat without knowing for certain that humanity was too strong to defeat. On Earth, preparations were reaching their final stages. Admiral Insu stood in the Central Command Center, watching as defensive systems that had been hidden for 300 years revealed themselves. The planet's surface was covered with installations that rose from the ground like mechanical mountains. The orbital rings rotated into perfect alignment, their weapons arrays tracking the approaching enemy fleet. "Guardian Prime," Insu said into his communicator. "This is Earth Defense Command. We're reading massive hyperspace distortions. The enemy fleet is approaching." "How long until they arrive?" Jinho asked from Omega 7. 6 hours, sir." "And our defensive preparations?" Insu smiled as he looked at the tactical displays. Earth's defenses were beyond anything the galaxy had ever imagined. "Let them come, Guardian Prime. They're about to see what 300 years of human engineering can accomplish." The alien armada dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. 9,000 ships from 3 different species, representing the combined military might of the galaxy's major powers. It was the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. But what they found waiting for them was equally unprecedented. The Sol system had been transformed. Every planet, every moon, every large asteroid was covered with defensive installations. Massive space stations orbited between the planets, their hulls bristling with weapons that defied classification. And at the center of it all was Earth, now revealed as the most heavily defended world in the galaxy. "By all the stars," Veltar whispered as she studied the sensor readings. "What have they done?" The planet Earth was surrounded by 12 orbital rings, each one larger than most space stations. The rings were connected by massive support structures that formed a geometric pattern around the world. Energy readings from the installations were off the scale. "Admiral," her sensor officer reported, "I'm detecting over 2,000 individual, defensive platforms throughout the system. Each one is showing energy signatures equivalent to a heavy cruiser. Supreme Admiral Trillhaven studied the data from her flagship. Her scientific mind tried to process what she was seeing. They've turned their entire star system into a weapon. This isn't a planet with defenses. This is a fortress that happens to contain a planet. Hivemind Prime. Kethlok's bioship pulsed, with agitation as the collective processed the tactical situation. Analysis complete. Defensive capabilities exceed all projections. Recommendation, immediate withdrawal. But Veltar was too proud to retreat without firing a shot. All fleets attack formation. We didn't come this far to be intimidated by human light shows. The alien armada moved deeper into the Sol system, spreading out to attack Earth from multiple directions. As they advanced, automated defense platforms began emerging from asteroids and moon bases throughout the system. What had appeared to be natural objects revealed themselves as weapons emplacements. "This is Admiral Insu of Earth Defense Command," came a transmission from the planet. "You are trespassing in human space. This is your only warning. Leave immediately, or face the consequences." Veltar opened a return channel. "I am Fleet Marshal Veltar of the Combined Galactic Fleet. We have 9,000 ships. Surrender now and we will allow your population to relocate to designated worlds." "Counteroffer," Insu replied calmly. "Leave now and we won't destroy your entire fleet." The transmission cut off. Veltar snarled with anger. "All ships open fire. Show them the price of human arrogance." 9,000 ships fired simultaneously. Energy beams, missiles, and exotic weapons converged on Earth from every direction. It was enough firepower to crack a planet's crust and boil away its atmosphere. The weapons struck Earth's defensive grid and vanished. The orbital rings absorbed the energy and redirected it into the planet's power systems. Not a single shot reached the surface. "Impossible," Trillhaven whispered. The return fire was devastating. Earth's orbital rings lit up like stars as they released energy that had been building for 3 centuries. Beams of pure force lanced out across space, each one precisely targeted at a specific enemy ship. But these weren't ordinary weapons. They struck through dimensions that the aliens couldn't even detect, appearing inside their vessels and tearing them apart from within. The first salvo destroyed over 500 ships. The second wave took out another 800. In less than a minute, the galaxy's most powerful fleet had lost a quarter of its strength without inflicting any damage on the enemy. "Full retreat," Veltar ordered. "All ships emergency jump." But the humans weren't finished. As the alien fleet tried to escape, weapons platforms throughout the Sol system opened fire. Ships that had survived the orbital bombardment found themselves under attack from hidden installations on every moon and asteroid. The carefully planned retray. The war was over in 3 weeks. The speed of humanity's victory shocked even the Guardians who had planned it. World after world surrendered as news of the Sol system battle spread throughout the galaxy. The 3 great powers that had ruled space for centuries found their empires crumbling faster than they could comprehend. Fleet Admiral Su Jin stood on the bridge of her flagship as it approached the Valerian homeworld. Behind her, a fleet of human ships waited for orders. Below, the purple-skinned inhabitants of Valeria Prime watched their orbital defenses power down and surrender. "This is Fleet Admiral Su Jin of the Terran Liberation Force," she announced on all frequencies. "I am here to accept the surrender of the Valerian Empire and establish terms for your future governance." Emperor Velsan himself appeared on the main screen. The once proud ruler of 200 star systems looked broken and defeated. His 6 arms hung limply at his sides as he spoke. "Admiral Su Jin, I formally surrender the Valerian Empire to human authority. We request mercy for our civilian population." Su Jin studied the alien emperor with calm eyes. 3 centuries ago, his ancestors had helped drive humanity into exile. Today he was begging for clemency from the species he had thought extinct. "Emperor Velsan, humanity remembers both kindness and cruelty. Your empire took our worlds when you thought we couldn't defend them, but you also avoided the wholesale slaughter that some called for. That will be remembered in our judgment." The surrender of the Valerian Empire was followed within days by similar capitulations from the other major powers. The Keth collectives, hive mind, suffered a psychological breakdown when faced with the reality of human superiority. Their bioships simply stopped fighting, floating helplessly in space as their collective consciousness struggled to process defeat. The Trilaxian Federation lasted slightly longer, but only because their scientific minds needed time to understand what had happened. Supreme Admiral Trill Avon requested a meeting with human representatives to discuss terms. The meeting took place on a neutral space station in the Centauri system. Trill Avon arrived with a small escort, her silver skin pale with exhaustion. Across the conference table sat Admiral Jin Ho, no longer just a guardian awakening from sleep, but humanity's chief diplomatic representative. Admiral Jin Ho, Trillivan said, I need to understand. How did you advance so far beyond us in just 3 centuries? Jin Ho leaned back in his chair. You want the technical answer or the real answer? Both. Technically, we used those 3 centuries to study every piece of alien technology we could find. We learned from your mistakes, improved your designs, and developed systems you never imagined. But the real answer is simpler. Jin Ho paused. You thought you had won. We knew. We had to survive. Trillaven's extra set of arms gestured in confusion. But your technology violates principles we thought were universal. Weapons that fire through dimensions, ships that phase through matter, defenses that absorb unlimited energy. Those principles were universal, Jin Ho agreed. Until we found ways around them. Humans have always been good at breaking rules that others consider absolute. And now? Now the galaxy has new rules. Humanity will reclaim every world that once belonged to us. Your 3 empires will continue to exist, but as autonomous regions under human oversight. You'll keep your governments, your cultures, your ways of life, but you'll answer to us. Trillivan was quiet for a long moment. And if we refuse? Jin Ho's expression didn't change. Then you'll answer to Admiral Insu's orbital platforms instead of my diplomats. I recommend the diplomatic option. The Trilaxian Federation formally surrendered 2 days later. But the most significant moment came when the human fleet arrived at Earth for the victory celebration. Ships from across the galaxy converged on humanity's homeworld, not as invaders, this time, but as liberators returning from a successful campaign. Hyun Woo stood on the observation deck of a transport ship, watching Earth grow larger in the viewport. So Young, Do-hyun, and Yoonji stood beside him, the mining crew that had accidentally triggered humanity's return. Hard to believe, So Young said quietly. 3 weeks ago we were hiding in asteroids, afraid of every alien patrol. Now, the aliens are afraid of us, Do-hyun finished. Earth itself was magnificent. The orbital rings that had destroyed the alien armada now served as docking ports for the returning fleet. The planet's surface showed the scars of its transformation, but it was still beautiful. Still home. Admiral Insu met them at the orbital station. The Earth Defense Commander looked older than his years, but his eyes held the satisfaction of a man who had completed an impossible task. Welcome home, he said to the returning crews. All of you. The celebration lasted for days. Representatives from every human colony, every guardian station, every hidden fleet gathered to mark the end of the exile. But perhaps the most meaningful moment came when Jin Ho addressed the assembled crowd. Friends, he began. 300 years ago, our ancestors made a difficult choice. They could fight a war they couldn't win, or disappear until they could return as conquerors. Today we know they chose correctly. The crowd cheered, but Jin Ho raised his hand for silence. But victory brings responsibility. We are no longer the desperate survivors hiding in asteroids. We are the dominant power in the galaxy. How we use that power will define us for centuries to come. Admiral Mirai, who had commanded the Sol shipyards, stepped forward. What are your orders, Guardian Prime? Jin Ho looked out at the faces before him. Guardians who had slept for centuries, colonists who had lived their entire lives in hiding, soldiers who had fought to reclaim their birthright. All of them waiting for direction, The Guardian protocol is complete, he announced. The emergency is over. From this day forward, we are no longer humanity in exile. We are simply humanity, reclaiming our place among the stars. But the real work was just beginning. The galaxy needed new leadership, new laws, new systems of governance. Admiral Boram was appointed as the first human colonial administrator, responsible for overseeing the integration of former alien territories into the new human sphere. The task was enormous. Hundreds of worlds, dozens of species, centuries of established systems all needed to be reorganized under human authority. But humanity had learned patience during their exile. They had time to do things right. Some of the original Guardians chose to return to civilian life. Admiral Tejo, who had held Vega Station against overwhelming odds, retired to a quiet farm on New Geneva. General Ha-Yun opened a military academy to train the next generation of human officers. Others remained, in service. Admiral Sung-min became the head of Human Fleet Command, responsible for maintaining order throughout human space. Admiral Mi-rae continued to oversee ship production, though now her shipyards built vessels for exploration rather than war. But Jin-Ho faced a different choice. As Guardian Prime, he had led humanity's return to power. Now that the mission was complete, he was offered any position he wanted in the new government. He chose to return to where it all began. Omega-7 had been converted from a hidden mining station into a memorial. The facility where the first Guardian had awakened was preserved exactly as it had been on that historic day. Jin-Ho took a position as the station's commander, welcoming visitors who came to see where humanity's renaissance had begun. Hyun-woo and his crew remained with him. They had become symbols of the ordinary humans who had sparked extraordinary events. Their mining equipment was displayed in a museum, but they continued to work on the station, maintaining the systems that had made history. "Do you ever regret it?" So Young asked one day as they worked together in the old mining bay. "Regret what?" Jin-Ho replied. "Waking up, finding out that your species had survived and grown strong, but also finding out that the peaceful retirement you were promised might never come." Jin-Ho paused in his work and looked out at the stars. Human ships moved between them now, carrying trade and travelers and messages. The galaxy was alive with human activity for the first time in centuries. "I was a Guardian," he said finally. "My job was to protect humanity until they could protect themselves. That job is done. What comes next? That's for others to decide." But the galaxy had one more surprise for humanity. Deep in the archives of the Trilaxian Federation, researchers discovered records that changed everything humanity thought they knew about their own history. The records were ancient, dating back to the earliest days of galactic civilization. They spoke of a species that had once dominated the galaxy, builders of impossible technologies, masters of sciences that others could barely comprehend. The records called them the precursors. According to the files, the precursors had vanished mysteriously, leaving behind only ruins and legends. But the genetic samples preserved in the archives told a different story. The precursors hadn't vanished. They had evolved. The descendants of the galaxy's first great civilization were called humans. Admiral Insu brought the news to Jin-Ho personally. They met in the memorial chamber where the first Guardian had awakened, surrounded by the equipment that had changed galactic history. "So we're not just reclaiming our place in the galaxy," Insu said. "We're reclaiming our inheritance." Jin-Ho studied the genetic data with amazement. Humanity's ancestors had ruled the galaxy once before, millions of years ago. Their disappearance had created the